So hey GBA fans, it's Xilicks here, and welcome back to another week of the GBA Fantasy League. Last week we had some pretty interesting mons scoring a lot of points. You guys will see more on that in a bit as we go over all the points and whatnot. Another thing I wanted to mention is the mid-season recap thing isn't done yet, so just hold off on that. Again, I'm sure it'll be done soon. And if it's not done in time, then we'll definitely have one for the end of the season where you'll be able to see all of your stats and all the stats of the different mons. Just for all those people who like to see numbers and all that, you'll be able to see that there. So let's get this week started with the last week recap. Alright, so looking at our last week recap, we can see our top player last week was Tangle of Boots, scoring 61 points. I don't remember which week it was, but I do remember that Tangle of Boots was the top player in the past. It may have been week 3 or 4, one of those weeks. Either way, congratulations to you. Our all-star pick this week was Defensive Amoongus, scoring 35 points. We all saw the clash at the end of the Steve versus Geo match where Steve just kept clicking Ice Punch and even some flamethrowers in there onto the Amoongus, scoring it 35 defensive points. I'm pretty sure that's a new record, and that's ridiculous. That's a lot of points. Moving over to our coach of the week, I've created a monstrosity with combining these two logos. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a little terrifying. But as you can tell, Crimson Seabad and Pokemon, coach of the Detroit Steelwings and New Orleans Pelipers respectively, scored 5-0 victories this week, so congratulations to them. Anybody who picked them as coach of the week will receive 8 points, and anybody who picked Defensive Amoongus as their all-star, which I'm not sure if anyone did, I'll have to check. But if anyone did pick Amoongus as their all-star, they would receive 40 points for that. Moving over to the official GBA Season 7 fan document created by Dallas Staryu, we can see over here we have all of our coaches, so if you pick them you can see how many points you got. We have our all-star, which was Amoongus, scoring 40 points if you picked it as an all-star. We have my pick 6, which I did pretty well this week. I scored 31 points, so if you got higher than 31 you beat me, and if you got lower, well then I'm ahead of you this week. Looking over at our offensive and defensive rankings, we have Cobalion and Jolteon for a tie for first place on the offensive side, scoring 17 points each. Then we have Dragonite as a close second/third with 13 points offensively. Moving over to the defensive side, we have Amoongus, who is way ahead of everyone with 35 points. We then have our Mandibuzz, who got 20 points in that 1v1 versus the Chandelure at the end of the game. And then we have Alomola with 13 points, getting some points from wish passing and some just other defensive general shenanigans. You get the point. Moving over to the U pick 6 for week 7. Starting off offensively, I have Kyurem Black from the Philadelphia Scissors. I believe they play the San Francisco Arcaniners and Sceptile MC George this week, and I decided to pick Kyurem just because I feel that Chimpact is probably going to run a good enough set that it can get at least 1 or 2 kills, potentially more. I think that this thing is a monster, and the only counters, quote unquote, is maybe like a super defensive Mew, which is possible, but again, I think that if Chimpact plays this correctly, which he usually does, Kyurem Black can probably score a decent amount of points this week. Next up, I have Conkeldurr as my pick from the San Francisco Giants. They are going up against the Aloha Athletic and Callum this week, and I feel that Conkeldurr just has the coverage to hit a lot of things on Callum's team. The offensive fighting presence is going to be very good versus things like Tyranitar. It can get walled by Crobat, but if it gets worn down with rocks or other mons on the team, then it can finish it off with like an Ice Punch or a Thunder Punch, whatever type of coverage it's running. So yeah, I think Conkeldurr it can put in some work. I'm not too confident with this pick, but I think that it has the capability of getting a decent amount of points if played correctly with the right set. Moving on to my third and final offensive pick this week, I have Victini from the St. Louis Rampardos. Now, Victini does get walled by Miltank, which the Tampa Bay Lux Rays do have. That being said, the rest of the Tampa Bay Lux Rays do not like going against Victini. Victini can run shop on that team with the right set. Now, Mono is a fantastic battler, has one of the best scores, well, tied for the best score, win-loss ratio-wise. So I'm sure that he's going to play around it perfectly. But Dan definitely does know how to use Victini, and I'm sure that it can definitely score a lot of points if he plays it properly. Moving on to the defensive picks, I have Slowbro once again, because this thing is an absolute monster. And the Detroit Steel Wings are facing a team, the New Orleans Pelicans, that have quite a lot of ways to hit this thing super effectively. Between Jolteon, Tapu Bulu, and even resisted hits from things like the Melodic, etc. There's quite a lot of ways that this thing can take a super effective hit, and I have faith that Slowbro will be able to take these hits, survive, and do pretty well getting some points, whether it's as many as, 2 weeks ago, or whatever it ends up being. I think that the Slowbro is always going to be a good defensive pick, based on whether or not it gets brought to the match. Looking at the next Mon I picked, I have Pyukumuku from the Florida Gators. Pyukumuku seems to be played pretty well in the hands of Gator, whether he is intelligently baton passing around or toxic stalling Mons, and just sitting there and sponging hits. Now, a pure water type does not have too many weaknesses, and it only has about a handful of resistances. That being said, Tup has quite a few Mons that do get resisted by the Pyukumuku, whether it's the Chandelure or the Slowking, and it even takes super effective hits from things like the Tapu Koko. Now, I'm not sure that this thing will be able to take all of the hits that Gator may need it to, but as long as it takes some and gets a few defensive points, I'll be happy with the pick. As my final defensive pick, I have Miltank from the Tampa Bay Lux Rays. As I mentioned earlier, Miltank can wall Victini, even if Victini is running Brick Break, unless it's like banded. It's probably not going to be doing too much to Miltank, and Mono can have other responses for a set like that. But I do feel that Mono may need to rely on Miltank as a switch into Victini, just because his team is pretty threatened by Victini with the right moves and the right item or whatever it may be. I'm sure that that match is going to be very entertaining to watch, and I will be excited to see if either Miltank or Victini ends up coming up on top, if they get brought, of course. That is going to wrap up our Week 7 fantasy video. If you guys would like to stay connected with the analysts, the coaches, and other fans, make sure to join the fan Discord. Also, make sure to submit your picks for this week in the Google form down in the description below, and check out all of the other documents and the coaches. You get the point. So stay tuned for next week. Good luck with your picks, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks, bye.